Hey guys, so welcome back. Look what we got here on the bench today. This is a Zenith. I guess you'd call it a tabletop, but it's also kind of a portable radio from 1941. This is an 82-year-old radio. It's not a battery-powered radio. It has, well, that was nice. It has a cord that's been cut off. There's also meant to be a panel across the back that'll cover up what this is. We may have to make something for that or see if we can find one. But this is a 1941 radio. It's an AM radio. If we look at the dial on this, we can see that it is AM. It's got kilocycles across the top, and it's the same information but in meters down below. Okay, all right. So it's a bakelite cabinet, as you can see. It's in very good condition. There's no cracks on this anywhere. It's got a cool handle on the top, and I don't know what you call that, but that's really nice looking. And I think this is in pretty amazing condition at the bottom. So it's a 6D 510, I believe. Let's see if I've got that right. 6D 510. I've got the schematic for it. Yeah, 6D 510. And we'll look at the schematic in just a minute. Look at the way the knobs do. It's a type of plastic that disintegrates and shrinks up over time. To see what we can do about that. Anyway, let's take a look at the schematic on this thing. It'd be great to get into this and see if we can get this thing working well, huh? So it is a vacuum tube radio, and hooray, it has a RF tuned front end. So we've got a little bit of something to boost our signal coming in. It's got, what do they call this? They call this a wave magnet here. That'll be interesting to take a look at. Like I said, we've got an RF tube, we've got a converter, and then a single IF tube, 2 IF filters, a 12SQ7 for the detector amplifier, first, AVC, first amp, and then we got the audio output transformer tube. Then we got a speaker. Looks like it's a permanent magnet without a humbucker, but it does have a field coil. So this will be interesting too, right? And it's got a 35Z5 rectifier, and it's got a pilot light. Very cool. Right, let's get this thing open and take a look at it. The cord's been cut off of it, but we weren't going to put power to it directly anyway. So let's get this thing open and see what we can find out about it. Okay, so what we got is we've got flat blade screws on the bottom. Now let's get this thing open, huh? Yeah, these are neat. These are original screws, I bet. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's get these knobs off. I noticed this one seems to move the dial cord somewhat. And this one feels like it just moves around in a circle. Well, there's on off. Okay, maybe it's because of the way the bottom of it is distorted. So let's see if we can get these off. May have shrunk onto the shaft here. The trick will be is to get this off without doing too much damage, right? Let me get something to get up underneath here to get these things off, but without damaging the cabinet. Let's try a plastic scraper here so it doesn't scrape the plastic, right? So we can get that underneath here. Can I use that to pry with? Okay, we got one of them off. This knob does not want to come off. I think what they do is they shrink up and they shrink onto the shaft. I may have to cut that off. We'll see. Let me see if I can get this off. hear that? I said I was going to cut you off. Now, does that motivate you? Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to get a little bit more serious with it. Yeah, I'm going to have to cut this off to get it off, I'm afraid. I don't want to damage the potentiometer that's underneath it. So I'm going to have to bust that up to get it off, unfortunately. I wish I didn't have to, but that's what we're going to have to do. So let me get that crushed. If you don't like these two wrenches I've brought to help with the job, you're certainly not going to like what comes after them, so might as well go peacefully. Okay. There we go. Yeah. This wasn't going to come off without a fight. You know, the polymer just breaks down. And you can kind of see the condition of the shaft. Alright, so we can get replacements for those knobs, nothing to panic over. Okay, we got one more screw to get out. Okay. Alright, we're ready to pull the chassis out. Now, I wonder how many people have been in here. I bet it's been a while. Those knobs did not want to come off, did they? Okay, we got our wave magnet. We've got a loose wire here. Looks like a grid wire. All right. I wonder where the heck it goes. Here, I'll show you what I mean. Let's see. Get the case out of the way. Take a quick look at the case. Beautiful condition. Excellent. Excellent. I don't know what we can do about this. We'll try. We'll see what we can do to save that. Okay, we have a grid cap here. Okay, let's take a look at what we got on the other side here. Wave magnet's got an interesting bow to it. Wow. That's gorgeous, man. We've got a little bit of a hole in the speaker right here. The speaker is really fragile. And let's see, we thought that was a had a field coil on it, right? Let's see what we can see here. But I haven't seen where this goes. Looks like something just got dropped into the case, huh? Okay, so we've got a pilot light. All the tubes are there. This is the power cord with a questionable bit of repair here, so no, we're not the first ones here. This is kind of shrunken and shriveled up. It looks like it might be okay. It's got an interesting bend to it, as you can see. But it's functioning. Tuning condenser. But analog slicer, whatever you want to call it. Looks like it's in pretty good shape. Yeah. It's not a permanent magnet speaker. You can see the coil winding in there. There. Okay. The two IF cans don't match. I wonder if one of them's been replaced. One of them's got the screw for the variable capacitor all the way out. So I wonder if somebody's twizzled this a little bit as well. Okay, you ready to look at the underneath? I can't get over that dial. That dial is gorgeous. Look at it. In the United States of America. Okay, you ready to look underneath? Has this been modified? Now I gotta think something's been done. Oh, look at this power cord, is all cracked. So I wonder if that's what led to some of this stuff on the power cord, because this power cord below here is not as old as that. And that is really crumbled. Let me spring you in. Right. So you can see how crumbled the power cord is here. So here's a local oscillator. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's the antenna core. Because here's another one here. Oh, I know what that is. Okay, that's the local oscillator. So this is a local oscillator, but this, you're thinking, what the heck is this? Well, there's a little tuning capacitor right here. I know what that is. It has a wave trap right here. A wave trap. And what you do is when you're setting up the IF frequency going through here at 455 kilohertz, you set this to drain that 455 off in front of the converter. So if any of it's coming in from the radio waves, it strips the IF, the frequency that will be used for IF, out of what's coming into the converter. It chases it right off the ground. And then it comes up with its own 455 here. But this drains it off so you don't get any interference. That's pretty cool. And I know that because when I look on the alignment instructions, is this it? Adjust wave trap trimmer for minimum response. So instead of peaking, you want to trough it. So this is where we adjust that wave trap, is here. Cool. Alright. That's a little stiff to turn. I need to do something about that. But looking at this overall, let me back you back out. Oops, wrong way. I don't know. Most of this looks pretty original. These all look like pretty original caps, huh? I see other wiring down here that's questionable whether that's going to be holding together or not. That looks crispy to me. So we got a couple of choices. One of them is to try to leave them alone, or we go in there and have to rewire the whole cabinet. We'll see how it goes. If they're doing okay, then fine, but if they look like they're going to become a mess, then we'll have to do something about it. So this is where the tuning cord comes through. It actually has a hole in the chassis here. We'll have to check on how that's doing. Looks like it's doing pretty good. Might need just some lubrication. What do you want to do? You want to put power to it on the dim bulb and see what we get? Where's the let's find the filter capacitors. Okay, here's the filter capacitor right here. I think it's a 2-section. Where is it? I'm going to put my finger through that speaker in just a minute. It's down here, it's underneath here. So the filter capacitor is right in there. I'm going to assume it's no good. A couple other things. We've got a, let's see if I can look at the schematic a minute. Alright, so it's not an All-American 5, it's an All-American 6, because we have an RF stage here at the front. And the power cord comes in, and depending which way this is flipped, because this is set up to be non-polarized, one line comes here, goes across, goes through a capacitor straight to ground, straight to the chassis through a capacitor. And that capacitor is almost certainly no good. So we plug this thing in, whichever way you turn this, you could be zapped with that. It's not a straight hot chassis in terms of that you do have a capacitor, but that capacitor is no good for sure. So we've got a chassis, a line to a chassis capacitor here. So we'll replace that with a Y2. This one here, if you see that one there, here. So here is one line coming from your plug, and the other one comes here. There's a dot there, comes up. So this is an across the line capacitor. So that'll be an X. So we'll put a X2 here, and we'll put a Y2 here. So what I'm going to do before we do much more on this is I'm going to check to make sure the speaker coil is okay, the field coil, make sure it's not blown, and then I'll check to see if the output transformer seems to be okay. And then if that is, then it's a series string. I may just go for it. But let me go ahead and get those things, make sure we got continuity on those things, and we'll do it. So I can get that by pulling the rectifier out and going at the grid the cathode connection. That'll get me to here. And the other side I can get from the, I guess that's the screen connection on the other side. If I could get to both sides of these two electrolytics, that would have been the easiest thing to do, but I don't think I can get to them. I can try. Otherwise, I have to go into the sockets on these two. You see what I can do, and I'll bring you right back. So if I'm going to try to go in and check here to here by simply looking on either side of the positives, let's say I don't need to use the ground. I need to try to get both of the positive sides of C7 and C8, which are the two electrolytics. Let me see if I can even get in there. Pardon my head. So I think if I go here, and then just go here. Okay, I've got 500 kiloohms there. No, 0.5 kiloohms. So 500 ohms. And look here, hot it says 560 ohms hot. So I'm going to assume that's okay. We got continuity through it. That's the good news. Okay, so we think the field coil is good. Let's go up here. All right, to get the audio output, oh heck, let's just put power to it, and if we get any buzz out of it, we'll know it's okay. But that'll be one of the first things we're checking for. Okay, let me get this wired up in order to put power to it. So hang on, I'll bring you right back. Okay, let's bring this up very, very slowly. We have a series string set, so we could have problems with some of the tube sockets. I haven't rocked any of them yet. So we'll just see what we get when we first go to power this up. I'm going to go in with very low voltage to start with. So if you haven't watched any of my videos before, you got to realize that you can't just plug these things in if you don't have some tech bench equipment. You can read all about that in the notes underneath here. I'm not here to show you how to do this safely. There's some excellent videos that I've referenced that you should at least take a look at. But just so you know, I have an isolation transformer. I have a variac, so I can vary the voltage slowly. I have a dim bulb tester, so all the current's going to be going through this light bulb that you can barely see here. I'm going to be watching the output voltage out of the variac on here, and I've got it wired in to where the power cord once was, and I've got it wired through my panel over here on the side, and I've got a 10 amp fuse here. Okay, we won't be anywhere near 10 amp though, I don't believe. Okay, so we got this turned all the way down, power coming up, watch the voltage. Let's go for a few volts here. On the top scale, that's 30 volts. And just let's see if we get anything weird happening here. There's no glow at all on the bulb. The power switch is on. I notice that these capacitors say Zenith on them. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's bring it up to, let's say, 50 volts. Okay, there's 50. Let's see if I can see any glow on any of the tubes. I'm not sure we have any. We may not be having any, we may not have our series string working here. See how much current we're passing. Yeah, that's not what we're operating right now. Bring voltage up to 65 volts. I'm hearing something happening. I'm hearing lots of hum, of course. Okay, I'm going to bring it back down. What did we just learn? We just learned that the audio section works. You could hear that hum. So this is good. This is good. This is good. This is operating. So we know we're getting something coming out of this part of it. That's excellent news. Okay, so what we'll do is look at working on that those capacitors, and then we'll come back to it and see how it performs then. We'll be going low voltage into, but let me see what I can do about these two capacitors. Get them out of there and replace them. They are 20 microfarad electrolytics, so let me get those in. So I've been looking around in here pretty closely. I've got a couple of the capacitors I can put in. I got some 22s at 350. Those are nice ones. And we're in this area right in here. So this is the across the line capacitor. It's kind of in the way. And the two capacitor connections are down here. So I think what I'm going to do, let's see if I can get you where you can see in there. They're down in there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out of the way. I don't need the cross the line cap in there right now. So I'm going to cut it out, bend it out of the way. What's left at the bitter end of the wire that I cut off goes to the floating ground. I'm going to use that to temporarily tack onto. Also, this one right here, that is the grid coupling capacitor for the audio output tube. I am not going to leave that in. I'm going to go ahead and replace it. So I've got a replacement for it here. So I'm going to replace that guy in here. I'm going to cut this, get this out of the way, and then we'll see what we can do as far as the filter capacitors. I may either just parallel them in for now, or I'd much rather just go ahead and cut the leads off of the existing capacitor and do something different with it. The other thing I'm going to do is this power cord is just kind of a liability. It's in the way. I'm going to go ahead and cut it and get it out of there because I'm just hooking up directly to the points it goes to. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm just noting where it's routed in terms of, you know, wire dress for this radio. It's interesting also there's a lead down here that's got a jacket on it, which is nice. Well built. This is all original. These are all Zenith capacitors. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the power cord out of the way. And that. So I mean, it's we won't be using this, okay? Yeah, even this piping that it's in is all crumbling. Okay, power cord's out. I say this is the across the line capacitor. I'm going to cut it. We're going to leave most of the wire there. That's the floating ground. That is here. You see it comes up to this point. It comes up to here, and then it's separated from the chassis ground by that capacitor. Okay, that's chassis ground. So that capacitor there is what makes that a floating ground. And so the capacitor can that's on here is separated from the ground that we have here. Okay, so that's out of the way. I'm just going to bend it down to keep track of where that was. And there's no lead sticking out of it. Now I do want to replace the capacitor here, but let me see first what I can do with the filters. Here, hang on. Wonder if I can get in there and break that off. Okay, there's one of the connections loose. It's like I had a slip-on terminal that was soldered in place. Okay, so I've pulled these two wires off of the filter capacitor. So remember, we're doing diagnosis here right now, okay? So this will not be left like this by any means. Okay, now let me hook up these two capacitors to these points and we'll see what we can get here. Okay, so what I've done is I've removed the across the line cap and the grid coupling cap for the audio output. There's the new grid coupling capacitor right here. Right here. This is the new across the line cap that and these are both really just temporarily tacked in, but I just wanted to, the reason I did this one is to protect the audio circuit, the audio output tube and the audio transformer. This one was in the way, so I went ahead and removed the old one and tacked in this one here, a new one, just so it would have something in that place. This is where I have the two capacitors here. Got the two commons tied together. That goes to the black lead that comes up and goes to the common negative, the floating ground right here. Then the two positives, one of them goes to where this one was connected, and the other one comes over here where this one was connected. And the hot lead comes in here from the wall, goes to the rectifier, and this one here goes up here to the switch. Okay, let me get you repositioned and we'll see how this does now. Let me get that pilot light in. I think it's a 47. It says it's a 6.3 volt at 150 milliamps. Oh dear, it's taped in. Dang. They kind of taped the bulb into the bayonet. Let me get in here and see what I can see what's going on here. I'd like to have that working as part of this circuit. So I don't know why they had taped the old bulb in. Here's the old bulb here. But the bayonet seems to be fine. So I'm just going to put in a new bulb. It looks like the continuity is there, but I'm going to replace it. Okay, we got a new pilot light in. Okay, let me get you positioned and we'll go for power up. Okay, so we're ready to go for power up with the replacement capacitors in there, the filter capacitors. We're going to be measuring the voltage here. I've got in an AC ammeter here so we can watch it come up. The dim bulb is there to protect us in case something goes bad wrong. And we'll see what comes up here. All right, voltage down, power up. We're getting current. That's 30 volts. Current came up and it dropped, so those two new capacitors probably formed a little bit. That's about the amount of power I would expect it to be. 60 volts. 70 volts. 80 volts.
Through Baalbek, Lebanon, and Petra, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, right down into Mesopotamia in Iraq. Paid for by Airtime Media.
Do you have over $10,000 in credit card debt? If you're feeling impact with unprecedented economic challenges, JetBlue is here for you. With JetBlue's Success Guarantee, you pay nothing unless your debt is reduced or completely resolved.
I'm just high right now. I'm very thankful for it, and the team at JetBlue are phenomenal. They're able to work with you. They're great.
Call for your free debt resolution information now. 800-200-6895. 800-200-6895.
Bring the voltage on
I
up.
said, Dan, you just got to get more passionate about today's show. I was like, what? What are you, crazy? And they said, oh, just kidding. So I appreciate that. I only read the opening. I didn't realize you were messing with me. But yeah, folks, this matters to me.
You got San Antonio. It's actually picking up a lot of stations.
For your free online visit, FORHI.
Mr. Fella.
Jackpot.com. Jackpot.com/joy for your older to order a lottery ticket.
FORHIM.
Where someone you know has a gambling problem.
Sensitive radio.
Agents selling homes every day. Getting out of bed and getting opened up and being able to really move.
Oh, player Bobby.
Look how selective that is. There's another voice in there. He stopped talking.
And help promote that healing process.
I think really, if you think that breaks down the
Agencies, I don't think they thought the media would give up their power.
Leasing is the best way to get your vehicle.
Well, guys, I think we got a runner. Here. The speaker feels a little, yeah, it's got a crack in it there. I don't think I just put my finger through it, but it needs some love because it's buzzing some. Doesn't have the benefit of those nice round cuts made by bugs, right? So I may need to put something on that to keep that from buzzing. But I'm trying to power off. But I think we got ourselves a runner. Cool.
Cover it here. Your Fox Sports Sunday is right now. Let's go. Live from the TireRack.com studios of Fox Sports Radio. Here's Arnie Stanyard and Chris Platt.
This is Shreveport.
TireRack.com will help you get there and unmatched selection, fast free shipping, free road hazard.
You gotta be kidding me.
Over 10,000 for the Dolphins not
Okay.
to be 0-2 to start the season.
This is 11:30 a.m. The Tiger, Shreveport. Now, how far away is Shreveport?
Going to the Super Guy in Seattle, but Arnie, I feel like
So Shreveport is 200 miles away.
is something that we easily beat. From 3 to 3:30, your DIY
Yeah,
project.
that's San Antonio. I haven't hardly even done anything to this. I just changed the filter capacitor, and then preemptively just did the across the line cap, which won't have any difference here. And I also did the grid coupling capacitor to protect the audio output system, you know, the tube and the transformer.
Slash the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. San Antonio's breaking news, traffic, and weather. News Radio 1200 WOAI.
San Antonio.
10 minutes to shower, 10 minutes to breakfast. Hope would take the USO shows to all
Well, this thing works fantastic. I'm going to need to do something about the speaker. Need to get these filter caps in. Of course, do the rest of the capacitor work. Clean it up some, and then we'll do the alignment, and we'll see how good this thing will work. Awesome.
And for a week, they haven't been able to drink or use their tap water, essentially. So, yeah, don't trust your lying nose. Don't do that. Okay. Hey, I only got to mention this briefly.
Okay, so I've gone around and I've tested the resistors that are in here. Most of them are okay. I've tagged a few of them for me to look at a little more carefully. Maybe I need to lift the lead to tell if they're really out. But basically, I've just gone through and checked the voltages, and the voltages all look fine. So I may just leave it. There's certainly none that are open or shorted. So we'll just see how they play out. Okay, so next thing we'll be doing is looking at how to do the, we'll certainly replace the capacitors. This is the capacitor that goes to the chassis. I've gone ahead and labeled it for the Y2, so I remember which one it is. I'll get the other capacitors changed out as well. There's one piece of wire that's kind of brittle I may change. The other thing is that this speaker,
is gone. His pain had begun to limit him in his mobility and his ability
so
to get things.
I think this speaker, looking at it more closely, I think this speaker's been repaired before. This looks like maybe this has had a repair on it here, and this now has a crack that runs right through here. You might not even be able to see it. So I'm going to see if I can repair that because it's buzzing a little bit.
1995. Visit relieffactor.com.
So I'm going to see if I can
800-4RELIEF
put something on there.
More about this.
Unfortunately, the structure of the basket is such that there's a structural web right behind this, so I can't really get behind it, which is what I normally like to do to patch speakers, is to put it from the back side so it doesn't show. But I'm going to have to probably do something on the front side because I have to. And I've got a hole over here to do something with, so I'll work on that as well. So anyway, I'll get that done, and I'll get the fuse in, get the wiring done, and redo the capacitors, and we'll see how it does then. So I'm just going around coating the cone because it is just so fragile. I've already applied the glue over by the split, and the old split looked like it was trying to open up again as well. So I just put the glue across it. There wasn't any holes at those locations, so I'm allowing the glue to just try to stitch up the edge, and we'll see if I can do it without having to add any paper, and we'll see how that goes. Now where the hole is down here, we'll see what we do with that. I'm going to try to go in stages of trying to stiffen up the edge a little bit and see if I can get it to seal up. We know that from that last speaker we did that had a bunch of holes in it, that maybe a hole itself doesn't cause the buzzing so much if we can just keep edges from buzzing past each other. So we'll give that a try. I can always go in and add a patch on that if I need to. I may do it anyway. But anyway, I'm going to get on with this. We're going to see how this dries out, and then continue to maybe put another coat over where the splits are. But I think it's going to be okay. You can see where that split is, and then I just kind of go back across it to get the glue up under the edge to where it'll seal up that the edges and hold them together. There's little cracks in other places that I'm finding as I run the glue over it. It shows up where the little fracture is. So this is stabilizing them pretty well. This is probably the most brittle speaker cone I've worked on. Okay, we're going to let that dry, and we'll see how this does in through here. And don't want to really cause a big puddle here, but I think it'll try to seal up where those edges are buzzing against each other. I may have to add another couple of coats on that, but we'll see how that works out. Meanwhile, I'm glad I went ahead and did the rest of the cone. I think it looks like it's pretty good. It's definitely fragile. I can tell by putting this on here, it really seems to help it. And I was able to find several other splits and things that were located here that I couldn't see before. And it seems to be doing a pretty good job of stabilizing them. Kind of see it there. And that kind of seals it up. Kind of nice thing about painting it like this is that it helps you find those little splits. Okay, I'm going to leave this alone before I do too much. I can always do more a little bit later. All right. Okay, we'll leave it be before I mess it up anymore. He keeps saying and he keeps going back. Okay, I'm going to leave that to dry for a day. We'll see how it does. Okay, so I went and did some additional coatings on this a few times last night, and then I let it set all day. I managed to keep myself occupied with watching the ball game and stuff, and managed to not mess with it all day. You can see where the crack is. You can see where the other crack is. So we got, this is the old one. There's the old one that looked like it had been repaired before. This is the one I was dealing with here. There's another bigger one, not bigger one, another one, a smaller one right here. And I think it looks pretty good. Of course, the proof's in the pudding. Let me give this a try. So let me back you up. We'll put some power to it and see if this thing is going to be okay. Back you up. Other way. Always doing it wrong. All right. All right. Let's see. Don't think I messed with any of the... Okay, here we go. It's interesting to see the inrush was about a half an amp. The thermistor will take care of that. Okay. We're about 120, 117 volts. Here it comes. That sounds pretty good.
The Houston Astros are able to hold off the New York Yankees and earn a split of this four-game series, winning today by a final of 9-7.
Yeah, I watched the game. That's how I was able to kill the time. So anyway, I think this sounds great. I'm happy the way this sounds. I still have this hole here, but as I said, I put the glue all around it to seal up all the edges. The question is do I want to put a patch over that? Take like a coffee filter and cut it up and like paper mache it on there. I may do that, but I think for right now we got what we need. I need to glue this piece back down. But I'm satisfied with that. So now the next thing is I'm going to do is I want to get in and do the electrical restoration. I've done this several times. I'm not going to make you watch all of that. But like usual, if I find something interesting, I'll bring you back and show you what I got. Otherwise, I'm going to get back into this and get it done, and then you're going to see in just a few moments how it turned out. Unless I found a problem.
Top of this first hour on Friday.
This is a relatively local station. It's got a strong signal in my garage here. And I thought this was a good way to show how the speaker sounds.
Talking about this. Oh, the Debbie Turner went in. He's arraigned. And he goes back towards the end of the month, right? That's the next time they're all in. Next time they're all in court together is towards the end of the month. And that's going to be another aerial thing. Oh, yeah. And then you have the debate over all of the charges. And there's, a couple of...
I think that sounds really, really good. I'm happy with that.
Because there's you know, and looking, and then we get the transcript for the Devin Archer testimony. Remember, we knew that was going to be out this week.
Governor Greg Abbott says he's standing up for women by signing the bill to ban transgender athletes from competing in women's sports today. Women in Texas can
I've cleaned the volume control. I did that a while back. I've changed out all the capacitors. There's the other safety capacitor. All the other ones are changed. There's one of the electrolytics. There's the other. I still have yet to put in the power cord and the fuse. But what I'm doing right now is I'm just letting this thing play and just make sure that it all is doing fine before I go much further with putting the power cord in. And we'll just see how that does. In the meantime, I've gone in and on the case and I've removed the handle off the top so I can get in there and clean it. I've also removed the dial cover as well, and we'll see if this will be usable. It's pretty yellow. It's broken out in a couple of places, so we'll see. But anyway, I want to get into doing all of this and continue on with the burn-in.
4 of its warships to monitor the situation. The Chinese embassy released a statement saying the action was not targeted at any third party.
Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm looking at the rewiring of the way the wires are bringing the power in. Okay, so what I've done is I've mounted the fuse. I've got a fuse block here. You might be wondering why bother putting a fuse in this? It doesn't have a transformer in it. That's true. But you know, it's 83 years old, and I think it's something like this needs to have a fuse in it. Maybe I'll change my ways later, but for right now, I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I got the fuse put in. My draw has been about 200 milliamps, so I put in 375, and we'll see how that runs as we do the testing. So what I'm doing is I'm going through and looking at how we're going to do the wiring. So what I propose to do is to go in and make it to where we're going to put a polarized plug on this, and I'm going to make it to where the neutral comes in and the switch is not here. The neutral will tie to the floating ground, which is then separated from the chassis by that Y2 capacitor right here, safety capacitor. Okay, the hot lead will be a polarized plug, so the hot lead will come in, and what it'll do is instead of coming straight across, it'll go, I have it going down. It's going to be a fuse here. Then I'm going to have a CL90 thermistor, and then I'll have the switch, and then the hot lead will come in to here, and then it'll be on the hot lead side of the X2 capacitor, and then go right into the rectifier. Okay, and the B plus will come out of that here. So the neutral will come in and go to the floating ground, separated by chassis by the capacitor, and the hot will come in here. So what I'm doing is what that means is the switch is going to move from being on the neutral side, it's going to be over here on the hot side. So I need to move where some of these wires are. So what I've done is I've got this, I'm kind of in the halfway position right here. So what I've done is I've disconnected the line that goes, the outlet from the switch. And I'm not using these to run power through. I'm using this to help me work through what wire needs or what place needs to be connected to what. That's just how I do it. So for example, I know that, you know, one of these, this point here needs to end up being connected down here. And I'll be looking at, is there a better way to do it? Can I get it from a shared socket or whatever? That's just the way I do it. So I look at this and then track it where the lines need to go. I've got the power cord come in. I've got an underwriter's knot here, right in here, and it comes down along here, and I've got, it's not soldered in yet, but I've got the hot lead will come to the fuse, come up, go up here, CL90, and then it'll go up to the switch, but then here it needs to come down to where it'll run into the rectifier instead of being up here. Anyway, that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to get this all wired up, and then I'll double check it, and then I'll test it. Okay, so we're done with the wiring work. So we've got the hot lead comes in, comes over here, goes into the fuse, then comes out of the fuse, goes into the CL90, which is what we're going to do here, go into the fuse, then go into the CL90. Then out of the CL90 it comes up and goes to the switch. Out of the switch it comes right back down, runs back around, and comes back over here to go to the heater going into the rectifier, which is right here, which is on the, we'll call that the hot side of the cross the line capacitor. Now the neutral, which used to come up here and go to the switch, now just comes right over here and goes to the other side of the across the line capacitor, which is the common or floating neutral that you see the negative of the electrolytic connected to, and that's separated from the chassis, right, by this Y2 safety cap that separates it from the chassis. Okay, so we've got that in and it seems to be working good.
Both the cinema of horror, but also just kind of the genre as a whole.
Okay guys, we're going to cut this off here and call that part 1. I've got a few more things we need to do on this. We've got it operating and it's playing, but we've got some other issues we need to deal with on this radio. And so we're going to pick that up in part 2. I ought to have that edited and out pretty soon. And up until then, appreciate you guys watching. And until part 2, see you then. Bye.